Hello, my name is Daniel Sweetser, and I'm reading from my novel Hope Starts Small. And we're starting a new chapter this morning, Heirlooms. This is chapter 7. I'm going to read part 1, Frank Digs. Frank had always hated being dirty. This was one reason why he so strongly disliked camping. The sticky, hot, aromatic life was not for him. But he didn't mind getting dirty. That was a sort of odd distinction he made. He loved digging in the dirt for as long as he could remember, and for whatever reason he considered that experience to be far removed from the stink he associated with roughing it. One of Frank's favorite memories was when he was young in Ohio. He remembered that his mom had given him a job. He must have been no older than 10 years old, and she asked him to weed an area in front of their house. He went to work, but somehow the task slowly became reinterpreted by him as he went. Rather than just removing the weeds, he continued to dig and dig and dig. Eventually, he dug a hole so big that he could stand in it. He had excavated most of that patch of prior garden, much to the dismay of his mother. He got in trouble for his zeal, and perhaps also because of the nearby buried gas line. But he did remember vaguely that they ended up making use of the hole and buried a time capsule there. Frank had another favorite memory of dirt work. His family had moved to West Virginia. The move overall was very bad for him. He lost close friendships, turned a dark corner, and did a lot of awful things he regretted. But his Heavenly Father was faithful in pursuit of him, got his attention in the juvenile suicide ward of a mental hospital, and turned his eyes once more to Jesus. Frank was pretty sure that this digging memory happened right after that hospital visit. His mom had given him another job. She had a small 10 by 20 foot patch in the back that she wanted to use for a garden, but it had to be tilled. So she set Frank to work, and it was good for him. Hard, tedious, hot, frustrating work. It was good for his soul to have to work through that small garden inch by inch, moving over the soil by hand with a manual tiller. But at a certain point, the task again became reinterpreted by Frank. He began to dig a hole directly in the center. It was large, reminiscent of what he had dug back in Ohio, and this time he got creative with it. He started some kind of makeshift oven with a small fire covered above with green grass, and made it so that on top the grass was relatively cool, with some smoke leaking through, but the fire itself was very hot beneath. Things then took an odd turn. Frank got out gasoline, perhaps intending to make things more interesting. He did, and the fire grew quite a bit. And then the yellow jackets came, somehow drawn to the smell of the gasoline and the fire. It should be no surprise that Frank had sort of ruined the garden. He couldn't remember later whether his mom actually ever planted anything in it. But this love of digging holes would serve Frank well. Most of his garden work now would involve tilling and extracting sod to clear the way for desirable plants. And this work was familiar and pleasant to him, like going for a good run must feel to some people. His boots would get covered in mud, and his work gloves would get covered as well. His hands would be calloused and aching, but Frank would be smiling. There was something to be said for hard work being beautiful, especially hard work with purpose. There is a kind of tedium that can kill a man slowly, where their back is bent day after day, and they get low, and the fire slowly flickers and then dies. But then there is the pioneer, the world of the lean-to and the log cabin, and clearing a field and planting food. These two kinds of work seemed to Frank to not be the same thing, although they were perhaps equally demanding. Frank was no pioneer. He didn't have that strong of a will. He liked comfortable things and the quiet of home. But there were parts of that grand adventure that did appeal to him, and he had the luxury of cherry-picking which parts he wanted. So he could go out and work and sweat and toil, but then he could come in at the end of it and have a nice cold beer. It was an awkward juxtaposition of living raw and living comfortably, but it made sense to Frank, and he thoroughly enjoyed it, especially whenever he got the chance to get his hands dirty. All right, thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day.